Good morning, Jerry.
Mr. Ignatiou.
Yeah. Can you tell us when the mission is going back? Why you bring on board Mrs. Velsculescu, that we know very well from Cyprus, and if it is correct that the Greek government asked for the replacement of Mr. Goyal?
Just on the last question, no, that's not true. So just to take that, and as you said, Michael, Delia Velsculescu is well known, certainly to you and Greek colleagues. I think she's pretty well known to everyone. This was very much a, a standard rotation, professional rotation that we do all the time here at the fund in terms of Rishi, Mr. Goyal, moving on to something else. And of course, Delia is very well placed to succeed Rishi because she has worked closely on not just on Greece, but on Cyprus and other countries. So it's a regular rotation. So I just want to give you a very direct answer on that. On the timing of the mission and so on, let me say a few things, because I know there'll be probably a lot of interest in that. The timing of the mission is still to be decided. The modalities and the process for the discussions still to be decided. We have, as I think you know, we have not been on the ground in Greece for some time to do our customary due diligence. We will undertake updates once we've been able to complete that essential technical work. So, again, I know a lot of you have questions. I don't have a specific date yet for the mission, nor for the timing of IMF decisions on when and how we would, move ahead beyond that due diligence and technical work that needs to be done. That said, I mean, I think you all know that the fund's position on Greece has been pretty clear. I think you've been reporting on it, that to move forward we need sufficient progress to assess policy reforms, that's commitment and implementation, and financing with a high probability that the debt will be sustainable over the medium term. So again, this is not new to you. This is the balanced approach that we've been supporting, or the Managing Director refers to it as the two legs of the approach that the IMF, I think, has been consistently reporting. It's the reforms on the one side from the Greek authorities, and the financing and the debt relief on the other side. So, clearly it's a difficult path ahead. We're just at the beginning of the process. The goal is clear. The goal remains. I think it's a shared goal by all parties of stabilization for Greece, recovery, growth, jobs, and a sustainable economy for Greece and the people of Greece. It's been a fast-moving situation. You've all been on top of that. It remains fluid, and I know you have to do your job. You're trying to do your job. We'll try and help you with that. So we'll try and get you the information as we have it and update you as much as we can.
Katerina Soku with Greek Daily Καθημερινή. Is it true that you will not participate in the first review, and what does it depend on? Do you because the Greek authorities, the Greek government has already passed through Parliament some of the prior actions needed, and as I understand it, also demanded by the IMF too. And so, will it depend on the financing being in place, on the debt sustainability? Thank you.
Well, as I said, Katerina, the modalities and the process for number one, the discussions that have yet to take place has yet to be decided, and that would apply, obviously to, as I mentioned, the IMF future involvement, future participation. I think it really all depends on those discussions. You are clearly referring to the European program when you talk about the first review. You're talking about the ESM, right? So again, I think the process and the modalities for the IMF involvement is something that we'll come back to. Sean.
Sean Donnan from the Financial Times. Just on a similar theme, is it fair to expect that the IMF will, in the months to come, be negotiating a new program of its own with Greece, given that the European communique that was published last week calls for a 3-year rescue program from the ESM, and also for IMF involvement, and given the fact that the IMF's current program runs out in March next year?
Yeah. Well, what I'd say is, as we've said before, we stand ready to support Greece and our partners. We retain that goal that we've had for quite some time. I don't have, again, the modalities and the details of the process by which we would be involved, but did you have something more specific?
Well, just very specifically, the Europeans are saying they want a 3-year program. They want the IMF to be involved. Does the IMF expect to have to negotiate a new program with Greece?
Yeah, so don't have the modalities and process. There would, for a new program, there would need to be a request from the Greek authorities, as is standard, and we have not received a request for a new program as yet. Jeremy.
Hi, Jeremy Torchman with AFP. I have 2 questions. The first one is to set the record straight. Actually, I was wondering, has the IMF been supportive in any way of a temporary Grexit that was discussed during the Eurogroup? And my second question actually is, can you tell us when the board will meet on the Greek request to extend the repayments? Last time, Mr. Blanchard said that actually the main hurdle was the arrears that Greece had vis-à-vis the IMF. Since the arrears have been cleared, does it mean that, maybe you could do something and grant the request of the Greeks to extend repayments?
Just on the second one, Jeremy, my understanding is that given that Greece has repaid the IMF and is current, is no longer in arrears, that the discussion of extension of repayment is probably moot.
It's probably what, sorry?
It's probably not necessary because Greece is current with the IMF. The request for extension of repayments, there were 2, and they were on both of the repayments that had not been made over the course of the past month. Both of those repayments have now been made.
Yeah.
So Greece is current, is not in arrears, and so I think it's as I said, it's a moot point. I think it would be necessary. On your other point, as we've said before and repeatedly, our baseline assumption has always been that Greece would remain a member of the euro area. That's been the expressed wish of the Greek authorities, and that came through clearly in the communique of not past weekend, the weekend before, from the European partners. So that's been our consistent position on that topic.
So you didn't support the temporary Grexit proposal?
No, we did not.
Okay, thank you.
I have a clarification. I'm sorry. Just a clarification.
Okay, Michael, because I want to give others a chance.
I apologize.
Are you okay with that, Andrew?
I apologize.
You have a very
Because
polite
yes, I know.
group here.
I'm puzzled, really. The Greek government expected the mission and Mrs. Velsculescu on Friday or Saturday. So what you are telling us is that she's not going.
I'm not telling you that.
But,
No, I'm not.
okay, the other question.
What I'm
do
saying
you
is I
have-
don't know.
You don't know, okay. The other question, do you have a technical team in Athens?
What we have in Athens, Michael, as I think you know, is we have a res rep office with a small staff there. So we have a presence in Athens. We've always had a presence in Athens in that respect. But the, in terms of the work that's to be done now, the technical work would be done by the team that would go out. When they go out, for which I don't have a date for you right now. Andrew, are we on Greece?
Yeah, still on Greece. I do have a Ukraine question at some point, but I'll stick with Greece for now.
a chance on that.
So the ESM program, I believe, is about 86 billion euros over 3 years. There's been talk that a portion of that is IMF money. Can you clarify? And if so, how much of it is assumed to be IMF money?
You're going to what I don't have for you, Andrew, which is the whole, we're just at the very beginning now of this process.
Okay.
We're going to send out a team at some point to, do the technical work. And that has to be done, and then there's going to be a whole discussion of modalities, process, potential IMF involvement, what that would be, how that would be, and when that would be. And I do not have that today.
That being said, the European Summit document makes it clear that an ESM request is conditional on IMF participation. How do you reconcile that with the fact that, in pretty stark terms, you've laid out that the proposals as currently constituted are just not sustainable from a debt perspective?
Yeah, well, again, what we've said is that our participation would be contingent on, this balanced approach. And that would require, on the one hand, the reforms, commitment, implementation, and on the other hand, financing. And we have said pretty clearly, as you say, we feel that debt relief is required. So again, the modalities and the process of potential IMF involvement would, depend on those things.
And can I slip in a quick question on Ukraine, or did you
Can I
want to
come back to you?
Yeah,
I will
sure.
come back to you. Let me take Barry. Barry, are we on Greece?
No.
Oh,
Okay,
then let me take...
Can I just follow up on Andrew's question?
Let me take Sean, and then we'll come back to Barry. Yes, Sean.
If we can just stick on the question of debt relief, is the fund happy with the way the direction of the conversation is going on debt relief, given Frau Merkel's comments on Sunday that she was open to a reprofiling, an extension of maturities? The discussion seems to have firmed up about having a serious conversation on debt relief after the first review. You just tell us how the fund reads that conversation. Is it going in your direction? Are you winning the argument?
I wouldn't characterize it that way. What I would say is that we've been very clear now for the past, certainly well over a month in the current context, on what we think is required for an effective support program for Greece. So I won't repeat that again, but debt relief has been a big part of that. And the debt relief component, if you look at the Euro Summit communique, there's several, a few paragraphs there that deal with that issue. So clearly, it was on the table for consideration coming at the summit and coming out of the summit. So again, I wouldn't characterize, where we think it's heading, but just to say again, our position is very clear that we think that it is something that's going to be necessary for an effective program.
Can I just follow up on that, just on that? I just want to...
Okay, I'm going to take you, Jeremy,
Okay.
I'll take
Yeah.
Katerina, and then I'll
Sorry.
go to Barry.
Can you just clarify something? Do you expect a formal commitment from the Europeans on debt to move ahead in the discussions? Do you expect something concrete coming from them?
Again, I think we've been clear that on the debt relief, there would need to be a specific, concrete commitment. And we've, you know, I think pretty clearly in the DSA and so on, laid out what we think the options on such a commitment might be. We haven't recommended anything specific, but laid out several options, and that would, of course, be for the European partners to decide. Katerina.
And could you please specify on what level would that discussion be taken? Would you need a board meeting again in order to discuss it, or is it a decision for the management to take, whether to proceed with the evaluation and then take it to the board?
Yeah, well, ultimately, you know, if there's going to be a new or additional or financing commitment from the IMF, as in any program, that would be something to be decided by the board.